Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
The Doctor, a time-travelling alien explorer, is sent by his people, the Time Lords, to liberate a small town in England from the tyrannical rule of a race of alien lava creatures called the Shalka. This full-length animated adventure, originally broadcast online on the BBC's official Doctor Who website for the 40th anniversary, is the first adventure of the Ninth Doctor, Richard E. Grant. Doctor Who, Scream of the Shalka. Howdy beans, and welcome back to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. As you heard in that wonderful introduction done by yours truly, today we're going to be talking about the 2003 web series Doctor Who, Scream of the Shalka. But before we get into that, I want to do a bit of housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So if you haven't already, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on anything that I am doing, watching, reading, playing and all that jazz. Also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you would like, comment and subscribe on this episode, and honestly any other episodes as well, because the way that YouTube algorithm works is that a subscription is absolutely fantastic, but to really bolster up an episode and bolster up a channel in the algorithm, it's engagement. So the more likes and the more comments a video gets, the more it gets bolstered, the more it gets seen, and the more subscribers and things like that you will get. So if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. And also, of course, subscribe as well. But yes, so today we're talking about Doctor Who, Scream of Shalka. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic. I really am, because this is possibly going to be the final Doctor Who movie I have to watch. Even though this is not a movie, it's a six-part web series. But it's the end of the journey. Really, it began at the very beginning with Doctor Who and the Daleks with Peter Cushing, then Doctor Who Daleks 2156 AD. I'm forgetting the name, and then you had Doctor Who the movie with Paul McGann, which is incredible. That was the last one I did around about the New Year's Eve or New Year's last year, and then now it's coming to an end with this one. And it's been one hell of a journey. I've enjoyed it immensely. I've been able to experience classic Doctor Who and different types of Doctor Who with different actors. That's been wonderful. Peter Cushing would have been an incredible mainline Doctor, and I would have liked to see Peter Cushing in more movies. Paul McGann, again, same, criminally underrated, deserves a lot more than we got and that we get, to be honest. And I absolutely love Paul McGann, and I'm a huge Paul McGann fan. I was before, but I'm even more of a huge fan of him now. I've seen him in the movie. It's been a real experience, and I've been really excited for this one, because even though it's not a movie, it's a six-part series. And I'm really excited to watch each episode and review each episode and sort of break it down in this long format joint through a podcast. So I'm really excited. There's a lot that went into the production, so I'm just going to stop waffling and I'm going to get straight into it, because so much happened with this web series. So Scream of Shalka, which if I'm butchering the name, I do apologise, was a Flash animated Doctor Who serial with Richard E. Grant as the voice of the Ninth Doctor. Its animation was produced by Cosgrove Hall. The serial was webcast by the BBC's official Doctor Who website in November and December of 2003, tying in with the show's 40th anniversary. The serial finished production shortly before the BBC announced a live-action Doctor Who revival with Russell T Davies at the helm. The live-action series would eventually introduce Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor, making an incongruity that led to Chakra being discarded by most Doctor Who fans. However, from November 2003 to April 2004, the Richard E. Grant Doctor was still treated as a valid incarnation by the BBC, with one short story premiering the day after Eccleston was announced as the Ninth Doctor, several novels, specifically Sometime Never, and the Deadstone Memorial and the Gallifrey Chronicles either foreshadowed or referenced the webcast as one potential future for the Eighth Doctor. Although Scream of the Shalka continues the narrative of the original 1963 to 1989 program and the 1996 TV film of Doctor Who, the show's 2005 revival ignored the events. The series was written by veteran Doctor Who writer Paul Cornell, with Richard E. Grant providing the voice of the Ninth Doctor. This performance followed years of rumours that Grant would play the Doctor in a film or new series, and indeed he had appeared as the conceded Doctor in the comic relief special Doctor Who, The Curse of Fatal Death, which is another one that I covered recently for Red Nose Day. Grant subsequently went on to appear in the revival television series of Doctor Who as Walter Simon and the Great Intelligence in 2012's The Snowman and 2013's The Bells of St. John and The Name of the Doctor. The Doctor's companion for this adventure, Alison Cheney, was voiced by Sophie Okonono, who appeared in the 2010 series of Doctor Who as Liz 10. Derek Jacobi reprised his role as the Master in 2007's Utopia, and David Tennant appeared in a cameo role as the caretaker, later being cast as the 10th Doctor in 2005. So it's quite interesting, really, if you just break that down in itself, how David Tennant was in this, and David Tennant would later on become the sort of 10th Doctor. That for a lot of people, this was the sort of next, after Paul McGann, you had Richard E. Grant, which I always found quite funny as the fact of they're both really good close friends, and they've worked with each other before on films and TV. That you'd get Paul McGann and then Richard would be the next Doctor. Also, again, he was in The Curse of Fatal Death, and I even mentioned in that one that I feel like he'd be an incredible Doctor. So I'm really looking forward to see what he does with the character here as the Ninth Doctor, as the original Ninth Doctor, before they sort of retconned it and changed it for Christopher Eccleston in the mainline series in the revival. And also you have sort of the likes of Derek Jacobi. He plays the Master in this before he would then go on to play the Master in Utopia with the 10th Doctor. So there's so much going on just in that alone. And then we actually dig deeper into the more production side of it all, right? So Doctor Who had suspended production in 1989, and aside from charity specials, had only resurfaced as an American-funded TV movie in 1996, which did not garner enough ratings to go to a regular series. When Shalka was announced in July 2003 for planned broadcast in November, the possibility of Doctor Who returning to television screens still seemed remote, and the BBC worldwide were continuing to shop around for another possible movie deal. As a result, BBC officially announced, with a BBC approval, that the Doctor appearing in Shalka would be the Ninth Doctor. However, events rapidly overtook this. In September, Lorraine Hegarty, can't pronounce it, do apologise, the controller of BBC One, managed to persuade BBC Worldwide that as their plans for a Doctor Who film were nowhere near fruition, BBC Television should be allowed to make a new series. A deal with Russell T Davies to produce the new series was quickly struck, and on the 26th of December, the BBC announced that Doctor Who would be returning to BBC One in 2005, produced by BBC Wales. As a result, the status of the Shalka webcast was in doubt even before it was released. After the webcast in February 2004, plans for sequels were indefinitely shelved for a period. It was unclear if the new television Doctor would be the 9th or the 10th Doctor, but this was ultimately settled in April 2004, when in an interview with Doctor Who magazine, Davis announced that the new television Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston, would be the 9th Doctor, relegating Grant's Doctor to an alternative Doctor. Davis later commented that Grant had never been considered for the role in the television series, telling Doctor Who magazine, "I thought he was terrible. I thought he took the money and ran, to be honest. It was a lazy performance. He was never on our list to play the Doctor. End quote. The working title for this production was Servants of the Shalka. This original story outlined is included in the BBC book novelisation of this series. It's kind of weird reading that by Russell T Davies, because he's the big Doctor Who fan, saying that he thought he was terrible. Obviously, I can't comment because I haven't listened to the performance, and I find it hard to believe that Richard E. Grant could be terrible in anything, or even try to phone it in or do it for the money. I don't know. Because he had, from what I've done in my research and what I looked in for Curse of Fatal Death, he was up in the running to be the next Doctor anyway, and he seemed quite excited to do it, and he did a fantastic job as the Doctor in Curse of Fatal Death. So it's rather interesting to read that comment by Russell T Davies. So if anything, it's got me more excited to actually see what he was like. Was it a good? Was it bad? Is it memorable? Is there a reason I don't hear many people talking about it? Is there a reason I don't hear many people sort of not just talking about it, but sharing their love for it and that sort of thing? So, yeah, I'm quite excited for that. As for the cast, so we have Richard E. Grant as the Doctor, Sophie Okonodo, I think that's how you pronounce the name, not Okadodo, whatever I said earlier, as Alison Cheney, Derek Jacobi as the Master, which absolutely perfect casting. We should have got more of him as the Master, honestly. He's in Big Finish, but not as much on screen as we deserved. Diana Quick as Prime, Craig Kelly as Joe, Connor Malloy as Graves, and David Tennant as Warehouse Man. So even when he wasn't in Doctor Who, he was in Doctor Who. It's funny if actually David Tennant was actually in a few Big Finish Doctor Who specials before he was in, before he actually played the Doctor anyway. So he was already, like, he's always been a fan. So he was always already in Doctor Who before he actually became the Doctor anyway, which I feel that's kind of lovely for him, because again, him being a fan, being able to be part of it and then actually be the Doctor must have been a great pleasure for him as a fan. But yeah, I'm really excited. My plan for this is that because there's 6 episodes, I'm going to do what I did for when I reviewed Resident Evil. Was that when I reviewed Resident Evil, I watched, say, the first film, then after I finished it, I reviewed it, and then I went off, watched the second film, reviewed that. So that's basically how I'm going to do this one, is the fact of I'm going to review all 6 episodes one by one, and at the end of it, I'm going to sort of give my conclusion. So, wish me luck. I'm very excited, and off we go to episode 1. So, I've just finished watching episode 1, and let's get out the way at the very beginning, right? The animation style is not great. Like, it's good for early 2000s, but you watch it nowadays, it's not great. It's very flash animation, which again, that's what it was for. It was a web series. They probably didn't have a lot of budget, so they made do with what they could do. But I can look behind that because it's serviceable. It does what it needs to do. It's stylized, and if anything, you could say it's aged well because it's stylized. It is its own thing. It's not great, but it's enough to where you watch it, like, you can tell what's going on. You can tell what the characters mean, what they feel, all that jazz. So I just wanted to get that out of the way at the very, very beginning. Obviously, because it's going to be a factor with the next few episodes, that it's not great, but I don't mind it. I kind of like the look and style of it. As for the story, it does a very good job of setting up what's going on in this world to an extent. Obviously, because it's like 6 episodes, it's a very long form sort of story. It doesn't give you everything, but it gives you enough to keep you interested. And I am interested, and I am intrigued. The basic premise of what I gathered from the first episode is that an asteroid lands on Earth, and this creature comes out of it, and it's taken over the world. these creatures have, and that people are terrified of making noise or causing a fuss or disturbance, because if you cause too much of a fuss and disturbance, they basically turn you into um, lava. Really, they kind of put lava all over you and they turn you and they kill you basically. Or if you cause a bit of a disturbance but not so bad, they just fry your brain. So either way, very, very evil. Um, so that's kind of what I've gauged so far in episode one. As for Richard E. Grant as the Doctor, obviously it's still early days, but I think he's doing a wonderful job, and I think he's very interesting. He reminds me very much a mix between Christopher Eccleston's Doctor and Peter Capaldi. He's got this very sense of feeling of like he hates humans, he thinks they're apes, and he doesn't say that, but you can tell, you can sense in this episode that he's like, "You humans, I'm fed up." Very much the fact that I've been looking after you for years. Very much like a Mr. Incredible sort of vibe, where it's like, "I've just cleaned up this mess. Can you keep it clean for like 10 minutes?" you know so he's got that very gruff, very sort of moody vibe of sort of Peter Capaldi, as well as that sort of vibe of like, I hate humans, which I really loved. Of the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, of how he was just like, oh, humans again, big dumb apes, and I thought, you know what, that makes sense, because he's been alive for however how long, and he's regenerated how many times, and he's saved the world how many times. His ninth stage, he'd eventually get to the point where he's like, I'm just fed up at the moment, like, and after the Time War, you're all doing my head in, all life forms too. And obviously, the Doctor in this one, Richard's Doctor, is meant to be the original sort of idea, concept of what the Ninth Doctor was going to be. So I don't know if they did, but it looks like they've kept some of the things here. I'll find out as the episodes go on if they kept more, or if it seems like it is, but it isn't, if that makes sense. We also get introduced to the Doctor's new companion for this story, Sanchini. Again, so it's early days. It's hard to tell if she'll be good or not, but she seems the type who's very rebellious. She seems the person that, because everybody else in this little pub, in this little, I'm guessing London, is very scared. Nobody really wants to talk. Everybody is kind of like, pussyfooting around. She's the only one who's like, I don't mind causing a ruckus. I don't mind being loud. I don't care anymore. I just want it to be over, so I'm willing to fight. And obviously the Doctor loves people that are willing to stand up and fight. So it's early days. Like I said, it's only episode one, but I'm interested, I'm intrigued, and that is basically what our first episode needs to do. It was only 14 minutes long. It's not a very, very long episode, and I would imagine all the other episodes are about 14 to 15 minutes long. So it's going to probably be quick for me to get through all these. But yeah, early days, I'm interested and intrigued. So episode one did what it needed to do, is to draw me in. I'm interested to see how Richard E. Grant plays the Doctor. As this goes on. I'm interested to see the new companion. I'm interested to see the new aliens, what they're there for, why they're there, how it all makes sense to the plot and to the story, and why people are being quiet and all that jazz. So I'm interested. So I'm going to go off and watch episode 2 now, and then once I'll be back with you shortly. So I've just finished watching episode 2. It's not as long as the first episode. This one only clocking in at 10 minutes, thereabouts. But I'm going to say something that's going to go against me completely. It's very sort of not common for me to say this. So, this is going to shock a lot of people. But for once in my life, I'm actually going to disagree with Russell T Davies on this one. He made the comment that he thought that Richard E. Grant really phoned this role in. I completely disagree with that. Again, I know it's early days, it's only episode 2, but from because you get a lot more of the Doctor in the second episode, even though it's only 10 minutes, you get a lot more of him here, and it doesn't feel that any moment in the first 2 episodes do I feel that he was phoning it in, that he wasn't trying, that he wasn't being emotive, that he wasn't playing the role as, I guess, instructed. As I mentioned in my review of the first episode, it feels this Doctor has the sensibilities and feels of the revival Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. You can tell that he doesn't really want to be there, and obviously it hasn't been mentioned yet in the episodes. I just know from reading the introduction that the Time Lords are involved and that he's being forced to be here and he doesn't want to be in this situation anyway. In his mind, he saved the day in episode one. And at the beginning of this episode, he kind of had the plan that he was hatching at the end of episode one kind of comes to fruition. He says that I want to go home. Then it's the fact of, damn it, they've stole my TARDIS. I now have to get in touch with Unit. Like, Unit, let's go down. Let me get my TARDIS and I'll leave. I'm done here. So he's a very interesting Doctor so far. He feels like the Ninth Doctor, but again, he feels like his own thing. But I don't feel like he's honing it in at all. At all. Also, we get to meet the Master. It's not said that it's the Master, but I recognise Derek Jacobi's voice anywhere. So, and obviously, he looks like the Master, right? You just know he has the goatee, he has the hair. You just know it's the Master. You don't have to say it is to know it. So we get to meet the Master, and we get to see, I would imagine, the Queen of these creatures. I'm guessing these creatures are the Shalka, but we don't know as of yet. It hasn't been said in the episode. But the small scene of the Master is great. He's inside the TARDIS. I like the looks of the TARDIS. Currently, you've got spiral staircases. The console looks very interesting. It reminds me kind of the way the console looks now in Doctor Who, where you have the huge column in the middle, the huge funnel. You've got that, and then you've got the sort of hexagon, triangle, octagon sort of control panel around the middle. I'm not saying that this inspired, obviously, the TARDIS designs, but I always love to see a new TARDIS design. I always love seeing what a TARDIS, other Time Lords sort of TARDISes look like, or new iterations of it. So that's always a joy for me. So it was nice to see that. And yeah, not like I say, it's only 10 minutes, not a lot happened, but by the end of it, Alison Cheney, she gets taken away because we find out in the first episode that she keeps seeing and being followed by this mysterious creature in the shadow. She knows it's there, it never approaches, but it's always watching her since these creatures arrived. And I also found out it's not the world, it was just a small city, a small village, if anything, actually, in rural England, and that the reason that they're there, we find out in this episode, is the fact of that this town was built on top of ancient lava caverns, and that these creatures on their planet, the Doctor hypothesizes that on their planet their screaming ability enabled them to dig through that sort of rock and live in that environment. That's why they're only in this one small town in rural England. Just so I wanted to add that bit in. But like I said, China, she gets taken away and the episode ends. So we'll see what happens in the next episode. But the Doctor's going there at the same time. He's going with Unit. He's going to get his TARDIS, so that will involve him to having to stay more, I would imagine. But so far, episode 2, again, it's good. It's a shame it's shorter, but I'm still interested. I'm still intrigued. I want to know who these creatures are. I want to know why they've crash landed on Earth. Why they are doing what they're doing. Why is the Master there? Does the Doctor know the Master's there? If he doesn't, how did he get there? Is he also working with the Time Lords? Because the thing is with this, and what intrigues me so much about this mini web series, is the fact that it's an alternate timeline. It is a glimpse into what the Ninth Doctor could have been, and what the Doctor Who could have been if it went in a certain direction. Obviously, we know it went in our direction, and obviously we got the revival, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and so on. But this is a different Ninth Doctor, so that means all rules are out the window of what, in terms of what they wanted to do. In terms of the Master could be working with the Time Lords. He could have had a change of heart and decides that he wants to be like Missy, that he wants to be somewhat sort of the anti-hero, sort of good, maybe. I don't know. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see where this narrative goes, because like I said, all is up for debate all is right and all is wrong at the same time, and that's interesting. So, yeah, I'm excited. So, on to episode 3. Right, so I've just finished watching episode 3, and I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but I am absolutely ecstatic. I am 100% invested in this Doctor, in this story, in this new timeline. I love it. And I know I'm going to be disappointed because I don't think there's anything more after this. I think this is it, you know, which is a shame. But 3 episodes in, I love it. This episode's longer than the ones before. This one comes in at about 12 minutes, so longer than the second episode, but a little bit shorter than the first one. And I'm absolutely invested. I love it. One thing I do want to mention is at this point, if you've listened to this far into my review, there's a high potentiality either you're invested just as much as I am, or you're interested in wanting to watch this and you haven't watched it yet and you want to see how it plays out. So just in that case, I am not going to talk about spoilers from this point on. I'm going to be as vague as possible. Just putting that out there now. But yeah, absolutely, I love it. I think I fall in love with the Doctor at this point. That I would really love to see Richard D. Grant play the Doctor. And I said this when I was talking about Curse of Fatal Death, but he just has such a charm and such a magnetism about him that I feel like he could play the Doctor now, and it would be absolutely incredible. Even in live action, or if they wanted to do another animated sort of story carrying on his Ninth Doctor, I don't know, but I would just love to see him in the role again because each time I've seen him, it's just been incredible. This Doctor is different to his Doctor in the Curse of Fatal Death, but definitely now I am 100% that this Doctor is very much like Chris Eccleston's Doctor, whereas he begins where he goes underground with this unit of soldiers, and you can tell he really just dislikes them. He doesn't want them to be there. He doesn't want them to shoot. One of them offers him a gun, and he says, "Well, I can't remember it. I can't quote the exact lines, but to kind of misquote it is basically, 'How dare you give me a gun? I do not use guns.'" That's he doesn't say that, but under those sort of lines, that's what he means by what he says. He says it in a lot more dignified, doctory sort of way that I can't recall at this moment. But it made me laugh once he gets away from the soldiers, once he gets away from the humans, and he's just around the aliens. He's like a little kid. It's full of wonder, and that reminds me so much of the Doctor in general, but obviously very much of the Ninth Doctor of Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, where like when he's around people, it's like, oh god, you apes again. But as soon as he's around aliens, he's like, oh, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're wonderful. Like, wow, I'm curious, I want to know about you, or I've never heard about you before. Um, and he tries to play it off as that sort of not bothered, sort of just uh, passerby sort of thing. Um, but he can't help himself. Once that Chini, he sees that she's in danger, he kind of puts himself in there, tries to save her, and then the monsters realise. And there's some great lines in this, by the way. There's some great lines in these past few episodes. But one of the lines in this one is basically goes, oh, "That's what I hate is about these monsters. Only the monsters know my true weaknesses. His true weakness is humanity. His weakness is being to save other people, and that he could have easily just saved the day. The humans are all well, and then just leave. Even try to convince the Shalka of like, look." Like the humans don't use the inner side of their planet, so you could just be their lodgers and not have to invade at all. Um, but they're not interested in that. They want a full invasion. They want the planet. And that we learn about Prime. She is the leader of the Shalka Confederation. And we learn more about them. There is also a huge twist that when I saw, I literally put my hand to my mouth, like, oh my god, sort of twist, which I don't want to spoil it, like, because if you don't know the twist, then it comes very, very, like, it does come as a shock and surprise. Oh my god, I did not see that coming. So I won't spoil the twist there. But yeah, third episode, I'm completely hooked at this point on. I've got my fingers crossed that it doesn't let me down. in the next in the next 3 episodes. I really don't think it will. If anything, I feel like it will get better. But yeah, I'm absolutely sold on this Doctor. I'm sold on this universe so far. I'm sold on this story, its characters. It feels like Big Finish. As I was watching it, it feels like a visual Big Finish novel. Because it just has that feeling. Because again, if you ever listen to Big Finish is done in parts, and each part of that story is told in again, like I said, parts obviously, and what it means for you is that you can kind of watch them. Like each Big Finish, basically, what I'm trying to explain with myself, because I know I'm flummoxing it a bit here, but each Big Finish audio drama is like a mini season because they're done in parts. So you'll have part one, part two, part three. And that's how I feel about this. How it's separated into different parts. So it's 6 parts, and all telling sort of an overarching story. And I love it for that. And it feels very Big Finish. Like even if the visuals are not great, the audio is incredible. All the actors are doing a fantastic job so far. Again, Richard D. Grant is a terrific, incredible Doctor. So yeah, I am fully invested and I am fully in on this world at this point, and I can't wait to see what we get next in episode 4. So on to episode 4. So I've just finished watching episode 4. Not a lot happens in this episode. It's about 12 minutes long. Um, this one, I'd like to best way I can explain it is sort of the expose. Sort of, it's the episode that really sort of explains everything in a lot more detail. You know what's going on, what's really happening, and what the Doctor's going to do about it, the Doctor's plan, that sort of thing. It really sort of it's one of them episodes that you get in the series that sets up what's going to happen next. If anything, it's kind of not a bottle episode, but it's just very much of an episode where you get all the explanation, you get all the information, so that you are prepared for what is to come next in episodes like 5 and 6. But it's not a bad episode. It's not. Well, not very fair to say it's not good. Well, it is good, but it's more just the fact of you have the excitement of the first 3, then you have a bit of exposition, a bit of sort of explanation of what's going on, that sort of thing, and then I would imagine that the next 2 episodes are going to be where it's at. This one ends on a cliffhanger. On another twist, which not really a twist because you kind of already know what's happened and as to why this twist happens. Again, I'm trying to be deliberately vague, but I'm still interested and I'm still intrigued. In this one, again, there's hints that again that the Doctor's human side, and he keeps mentioning his human side, and that he has more in common with humans than meets the eye, and obviously that is kind of coincide with the TV movie, where it was revealed that Paul McGann's Doctor on his mother's side was half human, and that this means that the Doctor going forward is part human. And now I mentioned in that review, and I'll mention it here, I don't like the idea that the Doctor is half human. I like that he is a alien, that he's not from here, because then it gives the Doctor sort of a way to kind of step back and to observe humanity without because he's not human. He is a watcher. He's an observer who decides to help because it's right. It's what you're meant to do. But if you make him half human, that for me it takes away the reason he's doing it. It's not just because it's right. He's doing it because he's half human as well. And I just like the idea of the fact of that he's a traveller, that he's seen humanity, he's seen what makes humanity beautiful and wonderful, and he wants to protect that from all types of evil. And I feel like you can only really do that if you are an observer from another race, you know. But that being said, for what it is here and how it's used, I find it quite interesting and I like it. You're learning more about this Doctor as well, that this Doctor, he is willing to do sort of tricks and that he's willing to put others in danger in terms to find things out. Kind of like the Peter Capaldi's Doctor did when we first met him, how he was willing to kind of leave Clara to basically get attacked, just so he could see the what the monsters, what the aliens, what the enemy of that episode were planning and what they were trying to do. And he does that here. Richard's doctor does, where he kind of leaves one of the guards with one of the Shalka that's unconscious. He knows it's not unconscious, but he leaves him with just to kind of see what happens. He even says like, "I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going off to do some some spontaneous and mad." And he leaves, and straight away the monster gets up and it attacks the soldier. And straight away the doctor runs in and stops it. And the guy was like, "You knew that would happen, didn't you?" He goes, "I did. I just wanted to see, but now I understand." And I like that. I love when the Doctor has a dark sort of twist to them, where the Doctor is very much the fact of, he cares, but how he gets his results, how he gets his answers is different to how maybe other doctors would get their answers and their results. Um, and I feel like this Doctor's coming into his own now. That even though he feels very much like the Chris Eccleston's Doctor, this Doctor it feels like his own sort of thing, and that he's being less brooding as the episode's gone on. I've noticed that he's been less brooding. And there's a mystery behind him. There's actually a history there that is only hinted at here and there, of that there is some sort of reason why he didn't want to be involved, and that there is some sort of programming in the TARDIS that doesn't allow him to stick around after certain things, and that something happened, and that's the reason why this Doctor is the way he is. So I like it for that. I like episode 4 because it sets up what is going to happen next, and it sets up ideas and story beats and character sort of motives that mean that, fingers crossed, that episode 5 and 6 are going to be a blast, because once we've got all the explanation out of the way, all that's left is nothing but action after action after action, and twists and turns from then on. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the next 2 episodes. Even though episode 4 wasn't great, I like it and respect it because it sets everything up, and it gives a lot of answers, and it gives a lot more questions. But it gives you enough that that those questions answers are going to be answered in the next 2 episodes, and because it's only 2 episodes, you don't mind so much. So yeah, overall still intrigued, still like it. Off to episode 5 now. So episode 5 is really, really, really good. I absolutely enjoyed this one. I was completely right in episode 4. Now all the explanations and all the sort of questions have been raised, and some of the answers have been answered. The next few episodes are going to be epic, and I was right. Obviously, again, I don't want to talk about what happens in the episode so much because of spoilers. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But it really gets going. Like, as soon as it begins, it goes, basically. I was right in episode 1 when I mentioned this was a world event. I thought that I might have been wrong because of episode 2, but no, this is a worldwide event. The Shalka have been here for about 3 weeks on planet Earth, and slowly but surely they have been manipulating small towns of people and picking Pacific people, Chini being one of them, to kind of be the, not harbinger, more sort of like the sovereign, sort of more sort of the leader of certain groups of these small towns of people, to reform the world, to reform the environment, to retroactively change the planet, really. And I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but we learn in this episode what the Shalka are, who they are, what they're trying to do, what their purpose is, why they chose Earth. It's really, really fascinating. This is a really fascinating race, and one that I would like to see in live action, one that I'd like to see in more Doctor Who episodes moving forwards. And one of the things, when I mentioned in the last one, what reminds me of Big Finish, is the fact of one thing that I love so much about Big Finish, and one of the things that I love about reading the novels as well, is the fact of Doctor Who spans the whole universe. But when you actually watch the TV show, because we see so much of the Daleks and so much of the Cybermen and so much of recognizable aliens, that even though I love Doctor Who with all my heart and I absolutely adore the show, one thing that I love the most about Doctor Who is when we see an alien race that we've never seen before, because it makes the universe seem bigger. Um, and more expansive. And even though I love the Daleks and I love the Cybermen, when you see them all the time, they kind of lose their luster, in my opinion. They lose their threat. They lose all fear, in my opinion. Um, so I love it when we get to see new races like the Shalka, who have got huge lore and story behind them and reasons for doing certain things. And we do hear, like this again, some great lines in this one. But we get to learn a lot about them, about what they do, how their society works. And it's absolutely fascinating. You know, when it ends on a cliffhanger as well, it leaves it open of like, how is the Doctor going to save the day? How is it going to um, rescue the planet, rescue humanity this time? Um, yeah, like overall, these past 5 episodes have been incredible. Been really, really good. And yeah, I don't want to count my chickens too early because again, we've got one more episode to go. Um, but I can see why this one is now a bit of a cult classic, why it is enjoyed by fans, because you get to see an alternate reality, an alternate universe of what could have been or what could have happened, but also the fact of it's just good Doctor Who. You know, it's got a good story, good voice acting, good, interesting take on the Doctor by the wonderful Richard E. Grant. A really interesting and wonderful alien race that, for me, is just is the biggest percentage of when if it was doing like a score system, I was doing it in points. The fascinating alien race for me would get the most points because the Doctor already comes in, say, with like 50 points because you've got the Doctor, and then everything else bolster it to get to the 100. And with the Shalka and how interesting they are, it raises it quite high. Whereas it means that for what comes next, it doesn't have it could doesn't have to do a lot to get to that full 100%. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say, and I'm very, very excited and very interested to see what comes into episode 6. You might notice actually I'm a bit scatterbrained with these episode reviews, mainly because I haven't written down any notes or any bullet points. I have literally just watched the episode and give my thoughts and feelings. So if I do come off a bit scatterbrained and not completely getting to the point and a little bit of stuttering, I do apologise. But I'm doing it off the cuff. And I like doing reviews like this. It is fun sometimes of just not having anything to guide and just to do it from what as it is, you know, which is kind of interesting. It kind of makes it a bit more unique and a bit different than what others are doing as well. But yeah, episode 5, terrific, incredible, and I'm just really excited now to see how it all ends in episode 6. So let's dive into episode 6, shall we? The final episode. And the Doctor saves the day, Princess Fiona style. And if you get that reference, you'll know exactly what I mean and how the Doctor saved the day. And if you don't get that reference, go back and watch Shrek and you'll understand what I mean. Honestly, all right. If it was 2003 and I just finished watching this, I would be excited for what was to come in Doctor Who, because that's what this was. The whole point of this was a pilot to get people excited for a revamp, a revive of Doctor Who, right? And if let's say, for example, that Russell T Davies didn't get involved and the revival didn't happen, and all the years of Doctor Who that we've known from 2005 didn't happen, right? And that this was the beginning, the true beginning, and then from here they went off and they did Doctor Who differently, right? If it was 2003 and I had just finished watching this, I would be excited for what is to come next. I'd be excited to see Russell E. Grant in the role as the Doctor, and excited to see how he plays the role and how he changes. I would be really, really interested to see Alison as well, his new companion, how she evolves and how she changes going forwards, and sort of what adventures they get up to. Because that's how I feel now at the end of it. Generally, is I'm saddened to know this is the end of this adventure, that there is no more after this, that I can't go and watch another episode. Or I feel like Woody in Toy Story 2 when he's watching the Woody's Roundup. He's like, okay, let's watch the next episode, and then Stinky Pete comes over and goes, Ken, and I was like, well, why not? And he's like, well, the show was cancelled after that. And I'm like, why? It was just getting good, like what? And that's when like the Stinky Pete would explain, 2 words. Christopher Eccleston, 2005 revival, you know. Um, and again, I'm not blaspheming on that. Like, I love Doctor Who and I love the revival series. That's where I began my love of Doctor Who, was with Resurrection. I'm not sort of making fun of that at all. It's just a shame, we have this, and I understand why why the BBC decided not to carry on with this storyline and this version of the character. I understand that, but it seems a shame that sort of the like Big Finish hasn't carried it on, or maybe they have. Maybe I don't know. And if they have, please, somebody out there who's listened to this, let me know if Big Finish has carried this on, or somebody's carried this on. But from my knowledge, it doesn't seem like anybody has, and it's a bit of a shame because I would have loved to see where this iteration of the Doctor was to go. And also, it makes it rather fun, is the fact of you have an alternate timeline, and as I mentioned in the last episode, because you don't know what's going to happen next, because you don't know where the Doctor could go, because this is an alternate Doctor, you could literally go crazy and go wherever you wanted to go. You know what I mean? You don't have to be constrained to the rules of Doctor Who so much. You can literally go anywhere and do anything with the character because it's an alternate timeline. So you haven't got to worry about ruining the whole idea of the sacred timeline and all this jazz. And for me, that sounds really fascinating. It sounds really intriguing as well. So it is a bit of a shame, but generally, I really like this. And if it was 2003, I'd be excited to see what happens next with these characters and these worlds. It also reminds me of Rose, the episode Rose, not Billy Piper's Rose. Obviously, we all know Rose, which is the first ever episode of the revival series. This, I'm not saying, right, because I don't know, so I don't want to say it is without actually knowing. I am just saying this because this is what it feels like to me. This web series, especially the final episode, especially at the very, very end, how the very end episode ends, it feels like Rose. Alison comes to the realization, I'm trying to say this without spoilers, but Alison comes to the realization that she's found something that she's always been looking for, and that she has the opportunity to travel, to go on adventures with somebody incredible, and that she ends up leaving her boyfriend to go with the Doctor to go traveling, and that's kind of basically how the end of Rose happens. Is you have Mickey and you have Rose, and Rose basically has the offer to leave, and she basically says to Mickey, like, I'm sorry, and then she goes. In this one's a bit different. She kind of, like, Joe accepts it, kisses her on the forehead, is like, no, I understand, I get it, and she leaves. But this, it feels like Rose, and I'm not saying that Rose and Rusty Davis and the revival sort of team took inspiration from this. I'm not saying that because I generally don't know if that's true or not. So I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths or put out facts I don't know to be true. But they feel similar, and there are similar moments, and I find that quite interesting. Even if it's just a coincidence, it's a very interesting coincidence as well. And one thing that I'll say, the only thing that really it doesn't bother me. It bothers me because I don't get an answer to it, and that's what bothers me. As I mentioned a couple of episodes back, you get hints that something happened in the Doctor's past. That this Doctor there's a reason why he decided to travel alone, or at least he decided to travel with the Master. There's a reason as to why this Doctor doesn't allow themselves to have a companion anymore, and it's kind of hinted at that a little bit here. Between Alison and the Master, and it annoys me because we didn't get a payoff for that. Now, obviously, I know from the revival and that the reason why the Ninth Doctor the reason why he was so reluctant to have anybody with him and all that was because of the Time War. Now, I don't know if the Time War actually happened in this universe, or if that is the reason, if that's what they were going for. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe he lost a companion while he was traveling and it scarred him or something like that, or it was a loved one, or I don't know, but it just it annoys me that I don't get a sort of conclusion to that, to why this doctor was the way he was at the beginning of the episode and how Allison changed him by the end of this sort of series, and that we will never find out sort of what happened in his past. So that's the only real negative thing that I have. But I understand as to why they did it, because again, in their mind is that this was going to be the beginning, this is going to be the pilot, and then from here they would have built up from it. I don't know if they would have done more web series episodes or if they would have done live action, but I would imagine that they would have planned to continue that story and slowly drip feed sort of those ideas and concepts and sort of the conclusion as to what happened and why. Um, so it is a shame that we don't get the answers to that, but overall, what we do get, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I can understand why there were a lot of fans at the time would probably say, "Oh, they don't class this as canon because technically it's not." If you because what they've done with the revival, um, but if despite that, I still think it's really, really good. And that if you're a Doctor Who fan, you'll enjoy it. I think you'll actually enjoy it more if you're a fan of Big Finish because it feels like Big Finish. It feels like something from Big Finish, yeah, but more like a visual um, stance. You know, when in that aspect, I feel like you'd enjoy it more because how it's set into parts and how it's like a elongated story. I would happily watch this even without all the episodes if it was just one long form mini sort of movie. I would happily watch it and enjoy it like that. But yeah, generally, I think you'd enjoy it more um, if you're a Big Finish fan. But even again, even just being a Doctor Who fan, I think you like it, enjoy it. It is that good. It bothers and sort of upsets me that I don't get any sort of resolution to any of it. It's just it is what it is, and that's it. You know. So for what it is, I love it and I accept it and I like it. It's just a shame we just don't get any more because I think that what they were setting up here could have been really, really interesting, especially with the Master being involved, and you had Richard D. Grant as a Doctor, and you have Alison there as well, and yeah, I just would have liked to see what happened more with this team. The idea of having the Master as a companion is absolutely fascinating, and it's something that I'd love to see in live action. So yeah, I am just I'm excited, just a little bit bummed out. But it is what it is. It was 2003. We're currently 2024 now, um, and if nobody's done anything with it by now, I doubt anybody's going to do with it now. But there might be fan fiction out there, but yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. But overall, I feel like if you're a Doctor Who fan or Big Finish, or you just want a quick bit of science fiction fun, um, generally you'll enjoy it. It's that good and it's that fun. Um, so yeah, so I've got no trivia, mainly because as I was putting notes together for trivia, I basically realised majority of the trivia because it's only short. It's not very long, but majority of the trivia is actually um, in the introduction about the whole sort. Like David Tennant is in this. I forgot to mention it in the episode, but in episode 5, David Tennant shows up for about 2 minutes. And you can tell it's David Tennant. He's got the Scottish. He's got his Scottish voice, his accent, shall we say? Not voice, it is his natural accent. I'm just so used to listening to him being British. But you have David Tennant there as an uncredited sort of worker, and he doesn't last very long, sadly. Um, but you obviously you've got David Jacobi as the Master as well. So there's not really much there in trivia that I hadn't already said. So yeah, I'm just really happy, but it bummed out. A little bit deflated, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. But I'm repeating myself now. I know I am. So I'm going to quickly end this and say thank you very much for sticking with me and joining me on this. If you watched it with me, episode by episode, or if you've already seen it, please do let me know on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. I'd like to know people's opinions on this, if they watched it when it first come out, or if you haven't seen it but you've now wanted to watch it because of my recommendation. Yeah, I just want to talk about it. I want to see if there's any other Chakra fans out there, or even any fans out there who would love to see more from this Doctor and more from this companion trio. Um, because I'm generally fascinated. I really, really am. So, yeah, so as mentioned, let me know on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. If you're listening to this on YouTube, once again, please like, comment, and subscribe and all that jazz. It helps me out immensely. And yeah, that's about it, really. Oh, also, if you're listening on Spotify, please do leave a rating, especially if you're listening on your phone. You can leave a star rating at the top, 1 to 5 stars. I'm currently at 35 ratings, an average score about a 4.8, which is really, really good. But I want to try and get to 40 ratings by Christmas. So if you haven't rated yet, please do rate me on Spotify. It helps me go up the Spotify algorithm and more people listen, and that there's more means that more things I can do here for you beans in the future. So yeah, that is all the technical stuff out the way. Thank you very, very much for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I've been your host, Luke the Human, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.